everyone, my name's Sophie and I'm the Research and Conservation Coordinator here at Knowsley Safari. So today I have a guest with me. This is Alex from the Spectacled Bear Conservation Society. So Alex, if you could just sort of introduce your job role and what you do with the society to our viewers, that'd be great.
Thanks, Sophie, and yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to everyone in your audience. I'm Alex More. I'm the Executive Director of the Spectacled Bear Conservation Society in Peru. So I'm a biologist. I've been working in science and conservation in Peru for more than 20 years. And yeah, I joined this adventure to work and protect the bears with SBC since 2020. So yeah, now we are cooperating with many organizations, groups, and trying to protect this beautiful animal in this country.
Perfect, thank you. So yes, we've been collaborating with you guys since March of last year, and I've had the team put some questions together to ask you about your work and what we can do to help further the conservation of spectacled bears. So the first question is, let's set the scene. What is the current conservation status of spectacled bears in the wild, and what threats are populations facing?
All right, well, the spectacled bear is the only bear in South America. So this is actually one of the largest carnivores also in the continent. And this, well, in general, the population, well, this animal, the distribution of the Andean bear is between Venezuela to Bolivia. And the estimation of the population is between 10 to 20,000 individuals. Actually, there's no right estimation because it's very roughly every country, but what is known is the biggest population of this animal is between Peru and Bolivia because we have largest areas of the Andes. According to the IUCN, this species is considered as a vulnerable, although there's some populations that are in more danger, like that one that we are working with in northern Peru, which is a remaining bear population which lives in the west part of the Andes, and this is what we call the dry forest bear population because it's isolated from the main range, and this population is more threatened from all that is in the main core habitat of this species. What is the threats for this animal? Well, the main threats for these animals are mostly the habitat loss, and in the past, and still we have hunting on this animal. And while the habitat loss is more because of the growth of the agricultural expansion and the urban areas, and in general, in many areas around the distribution, there are more projects to open roads and populations and cities. So this is affecting. In general, the habitat of the species is being degraded and deforested. In the hunting also depends on the area, because in some area, well, in the past, the hunting was a major threat because people used to hunt as a trophy, you know, and also because they wanted to use part of the animal for rituals or traditional medicine. But I could say that in the last 20 years, maybe there has been many actions from the governments and institutions trying to educate people about that. But now there is still hunting, but it's mostly related to this bad coexistence that they have with the species because, well, bears at the end are carnivores, and they can feed opportunistically on cattle. That means that when people, feels a threat to the cattle, which is one of the main activities of rural populations in Peru or all the Andes, they go and kill the animal. So that's bad. That is actually a conflict that is with human population, and that is something that we need to deal with, and is exactly where most of all the conservation actions with local communities are trying to work. Those are the threats for the species.
Brilliant, thank you. So that helps set the scene to our listeners of what's going on with the population of bears and why you might be seeing some sort of declines in populations or issues in places. Then it comes on to, what is the long-term goal for the Spectacled Bear Conservation Society?
Well, our organization was created to protect this animal. Our main goal is well, we need to make the Andean bear populations to thrive, and we need to work on the coexistence with human population. That's our main goals. Because we need healthy populations. We are working to protect key populations in Peru now. And with all the information that we are collecting, we are providing information to the government in case of protected areas, to reinforce the management of these areas, but also working with local communities, to try to create different and alternative incomes. And at the same time, we have all these challenges that I talk about, is how to make this coexistence possible. So that means we for example, we're now working with a vet program trying to educate cattle ranchers, also to provide services, because at the end, cattle can be also a threat for animals. So that's our main goal, how to make possible this coexistence with this animal.
Thank you. So that's your goal, but how do you monitor these populations in the wild? How do you keep a track of different bears, say in a specific area or over much larger areas?
Right. Well, one of the things that is very interesting from this animal is that we can identify every individual by these white patches in the face and also part of the chest. So that means that it's possible to monitor individuals when we have, different methods. And actually, we are using, I could say, three main methods. We have cam trap stations, permanent and temporal cam trap stations. We also are using collars, which was thanks, for example, to your support, so your Knowsley support. We are deploying collar on bears because we want to know more about the movement of these animals. And we also have spending time in having direct observations and also collecting, scats and other signs of the presence of this animal. We use the camera trap data mostly to understand the population, and actually we have some camera trap stations that has even 15 years, so we have long-term data which allowed us to make estimations of the viability of these populations. We know now more about the survival rates of the species, which is key. Actually, we know that the data that SBC is producing is very important, and just few organizations along all the distribution of this animal cast this information. And also the information from the color is incredible. That's the second step, I could say, in terms of knowledge of this animal, because we are in a rapid way collecting data about how these animals are using the habitat and how they are moving, and what are the key areas where they are feeding on, where are the key areas that they need to move between one patch of forest to another one. In terms of protected areas, for example, now we know that it seems that there are some months of the year where the bears are moving outside of parks, and getting resources. Even in Cusco, for example, we know that the bears are moving in a rural area where there are crops, feeding on corn. So that allows us again to have more knowledge, and also work in the case of the Machu Picchu, work with the rangers and the reserve managers to create rapid actions for conservation. I would say this is the importance of all the research that we are doing is also related to conservation. We know where the key feeding areas are, and now we are trying to purchase all those key areas as a strategy for the conservation of the species.
That's so cool to hear about how sort of the length of some of the data sets that you have, because 15 years is brilliant to have that much data to analyze, and also to hear about the different sort of facial markings that can be used to identify different bears, because we have our bears here at Knowsley. So our spectacled bears are Bahia, who we say is a princess because she has like a little tiara shape on her forehead. And then we have Chewy, who has a monocle sort of around one eye that makes him look like a very respectable gentleman. So hearing about how those kind of facial markings can be used through camera traps and AI and analysis of images to be able to track different bears. Thank you very much. So Spectacled bears are described as a keystone species within their forest habitats. Could you please explain what this means and the crucial function that they play in seed dispersal and forest regeneration?
Sure. Well, the spectacled bear or Andean bear is a carnivore actually, but is because of the teeth that they have. But we know that at least 90% of the diet of this animal is plants. And bromeliads and fig trees and like avocados, wild trees. So in general, this is most what this species feeds on. And what is the role that they have? So they feed on the fruits, well, they can feed on even on flowers, but when they feed on the fruits of these plants, of these trees, they then carry that, they process it in the stomach, and then when they make the food, then from that is where the new plants start growing in the forest. That is a key ecosystem service that this species is providing to recover the forest, and even to, and also when they are moving through the forest, they are opening, because this is a big animal, so they are opening clear spaces in the forest, and that allows to new plants to grow, and with the light, can go and access the soil, and then new plants can grow. So that is why we in general see that the contribution of the Andean bear to the forest function in general. But it's not only about that part, because I could say that also the Andean bear is very important also for local cultures. And that is related how these local cultures in the past used to have a better relationship with the forest. We know that ancient Peruvians have they have the bear as a god. And even now, there is one of the biggest parties where local people go to close to a glacier in Peru. This is the Festival de Coyuriti. That's the name of the festivity. They go, and some people go dressed like a bear. And these guys are the connection between the God mountains and the people. And yeah, that means that Asian Peruvian, again, I think cultures in the Andes have a strong relationship with this animal. And that's why they, in the past, they also protect the area in general. That means that it's not only what the bear is doing as an animal, as part of the ecosystem, but also what this species means for the people, and how that was a connection with the forest.
I mean, I knew about sort of what bears do for the forest and what they do with seed dispersal, but I had no idea about the kind of cultural connection to local populations. So that's really fascinating to learn. So they're not only important to save for the health of the forest, but also for that kind of tradition and tie to the culture. So yeah, I learned something new there. Right, next question. What is your favorite part of your role at the Spectacled Bear Conservation Society?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, I love being as any of us who has started a career in conservation. We love field work. I love research, and that's my passion actually. But I also enjoy the networking that I can do with my job, because I'm trying to connect, local populations with the science that we are producing, and at the same time I'm connecting the science with the authorities in Peru. I'm trying to create also cooperation between other partners. And we know as a conservationist that we can do everything that we need, because at the end the main challenge of conservation is trying to create an alternative and more sustainable way for local people to survive. And that means that they need, they have other needs to cover. And as a conservationist, we need to join, with people, with the agencies and the government that has these rural programs to rise. So I could say that's what I love from my job too. I'm trying to understand what is very important for this animal from the science, and I love being in the field, but at the same time try to make the connections that make possible this. And for sure, we also are doing our part of our job. But crying, and I could say that this is very important for any who is working. We also need to be aware of our own part in this work. So we just need to create connections. That's what I love to do too.
completely agree. Conservation doesn't work without so many different parties and people, and government to locals to researchers all coming together to sort of work for the better of ecosystems and species and the people that live alongside these species, because it doesn't work unless we look at the big picture instead of just focusing on one aspect of conservation. So I completely agree. I love that part of this kind of career as well. What do you feel is the biggest accomplishment of the Spectacled Bear Conservation Society so far?
Yeah, I could say that first is having this long-term monitoring program. So as I said before, all the information that we have it's amazing in terms of, I could say that most of the knowledge of the ecology of this animal in Peru and the contribution that we can do also, the general knowledge of the species around the world is thanks to all the efforts that my colleagues have been doing for all these years. But at the same time, how we are using this information for conservation. And I could say that we have a key accomplishment this year because we are purchasing key pieces of land. In a landscape perspective, we are protecting key pieces of area. Now we are purchasing 5,000 acres of key habitat for these animals. So that is important. So to make this possible, we had a very big campaign in terms of raising the funds for that, negotiating with the owner, and so this is I could say this is like a puzzle. We have this piece of land that we are purchasing in a conservation mosaic that we want to protect. So I am happy for that, and I think it's the first. I couldn't say it's one of the key steps that we are having in the protection of this bear.
Congratulations! I mean, that must have taken a massive effort, but that sounds amazing. So we've briefly touched on this. So the question was, how have Knowsley Safari supported the Spectacled Bear Conservation Society so far? But you've touched on the fact that we sort of helped fund one of your GPS collars for your GPS program. So maybe you'd just like to give us a bit of information on sort of what the GPS collar is being used for, how many you have, and where they're being deployed.
Sure. Well, as I said, since last year, we started a coloring program because we wanted to understand more about the movement of the animals and the key habitat use. So yeah, thanks to your support and our colleagues, we have deployed 10 collars on bears in protected areas in Peru. And this is the first time that Andean bears has been collared in Peru in protected areas. So we are monitoring now 2 groups of bears with collars in Machu Picchu, this iconic touristic area, but is surrounded by amazing forests, and also in the northern Peru, where we have when we have this program from the last 15 years. So what are now, for example, as I said, we know that the bears uses not only the protected area. We have that hypothesis that the bears are using far from the limits or the boundaries of the protected area. And we know that there are other key areas around these reserves that they need to be protected. And some of them are in community lands. And so that allows us to focus our conservation strategies in these villages or community lands around the parks. That is something that we have more information about that. And so what the key feeding resources. We are identifying new areas and probably new tree species that are key for the diet and for the species. So all that information, and also how they are moving. Well, we started the program in May last year. So yeah, it's been soon we are having a year since we deployed the first collar. And that's going to be amazing when we are going to check all what happened during a year of data. And then this is also for us is a very learning experience because we have a vet, we have all the stuff that is in this project, but also as most of this is new in general. When I was in a conference in Canada last year, I saw how some big project with coloring brown bears and black bears with more than 500 colors on the animals. But in general, in Peru, I could say that we have just these 10 pairs with colors are providing key information, and is a pioneer project from this for us. So yeah, we are very happy with this project, and thanks. We are still planning to deploy more colors in the future because we want to understand. Every bear is a different animal. Every bear has a different behavior in different areas. So we are trying to expand this program to different areas around these two key populations that we are studying.
Well, I hope that work goes well. I mean, it sounds fascinating. And it will be really interesting to see, as you said, the sort of movements of the bears that have been collared and get that bigger picture, because a camera trap is one thing in a static place, being able to track what bears are in the area, but actually being able to see what each bear is doing and where they're moving, and quite importantly, how close to people they're getting in human populations and what habitats they're accessing. That's going to be really interesting to see that data. So our last question is, that's kind of what we can do as sort of a safari to help support you, but what can the public do to help you guys at the Spectacled Bear Conservation Society?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. First of all, I could say that go and visit Knowsley Zoo and see the Andean bears around and learn more about the species, and get more interest about this animal, because as I was trying to explain, it also has a lot of values for all the Andes. With the Andean bear, there are more other animals that we are trying to protect under the same habitat. So I could say that it's important to learn more about the habitat, trying to spread the word, as you say, to comment with your family, your relatives about this animal, that this is very, related to the culture in Peru, with this famous tale of the Paddington. So it's all that related to this animal in Peru, I could say, or in South America in general. Then, well, if you are interested, we also are selling these Felty products that we have from our communities. We are working to empower our local communities in women, especially. They produce these artisanal handicrafts with wool. So we are selling this. So if you want to purchase this, we have an online request of that. And also, well, we are very open to get any contributions to our work. So this is a good stay. I just remember one thing that I wanted to share with your audience is that this year, 2025, is 200 since the species was discovered for science. Maybe it's a very interesting fact for anyone to know. And well, according to the story, the first Andean bear that was described for science, it was supposed to be collected in Chile, according to the TAC, to the science when they collect the species. But in Chile, there's no Andean bears. So there were other scientists who checked all the route that in the past, there were ships that brought all the animals and plants that were collecting around the 17th century. And what we know is that the first specimen of the spectacled bear comes from the northern Peru. That's what we know now, because it was from this area close to where we have our project in northern Peru. So yeah, I think it's interesting for anyone to know this. So.
I mean, 200 years, that's a good anniversary to have. Well, thank you very much. We will make sure that there are links to sort of your website and everything in the bio here. So viewers, if you want to have a look and go see what you can do to support them, that would be great. So thank you, Alex, for taking the time to talk to me today and tell us all about the amazing work that you guys do. Really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks to you. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your interest. I'm very happy to keep sharing more news about that. And yeah, thanks for the time.